Hey friends, it's Lauren Taylor. Thanks for joining me in my craft room today. I appreciate you stopping by. I'm using the new Sassy Club book card die set, as well as this adorable fandom stamp set called You're Welcome. I've already stamped and colored my images in. I used Sassy Onyx black ink and my Oh Hoo Hoo art markers to color all of my images in, but I really wanted to show how I put together this. Pretty much it's a box card, but it's a different kind of box card. It's a book box card. And I'm kind of showing off some of the papers I'm going to be using to die cut all of my different elements. So I have the actual box part of the book card die. I have the book cover, and then I have some different pieces that we can put inside of our book box card. So let me get all of these die cut and ready. Now I will say I got a little excited and I assembled my box together, like closed it up before I put all of these cute little detailed I call them shelves, but different pieces inside of the book card. So I will make another video in the future where I don't glue the box book together before adding in these details, just so you can see an easier way of putting it together, because I will say I struggled a bit getting these into the book box. There's a lot of B's in this video, the book box card, but I'll explain that more as I get there. So these are all the different pieces and how I'm going to layer them together, but I did want to get some ink blending done. I'm measuring how big the opening is on the box card because I'm also going to cut a piece of white cardstock that I use for ink blending, and I'm going to create a sky background, but you'll see when I get there. So I'm starting with what will be a sandy island for my scene that I'm creating inside of my book box card die, and I'm starting with this kind of tan colored paper, and I'm adding vintage photo along the bottom of it, just using my dome foamed blender from scrapbook.com, and I'm going to follow that up with some vintage photo, and then I also bring in walnut stain distress ink to add in splatter. For my ocean on the teal, I start with Mermaid Lagoon and also add Uncharted Mariner, and then I will grab Uncharted Mariner in the Distress ink and add it as splatter to my water. I also grab my Avery L white spray to add some white spray details to these two pieces, so that way my sand and my water have a look of highlights and lowlights on the background. Here's that piece that I cut out of some white cardstock that I use for ink blending, and I added tumbled glass. I didn't really go too crazy on making sure it looked really smooth and nice because you're not going to see a lot of it. I just wanted to have a sky background for all of those little die cut pieces from the die set. So now I am folding along the score lines. This is the kind of base, the inside of our book box card, and I am just using a bone folder to help kind of reinforce my folds along the score line. I did use my super sturdy cardstock for this, so it needs a little bit of extra help. I wanted to make sure it was sturdy enough to hold all of these different pieces that I die cut to go on the inside of my little scene. So now this is where I should have stopped and added in the insides of my scene, but I was just so excited because this was my first time using the box card die that I glued together my box here, my book box. And I'm kind of sad. Like I said, I didn't think about it until I was done right here. You're going to see my hands like get frustrated with myself when I realize I didn't glue any of the insides right there. But that's okay. We're going to make do. I don't know why I didn't just cut another piece, but you know what? I don't like to waste in my craft room, so I was going to figure it out. I added some adhesive to that blue cardstock, and it's about 1/4 of an inch smaller on the top and side, so that way when I can glue it to the center of that background, and it would give an 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. But again, you're not going to see the details because my scene's going to be pretty busy with all of these little attachments. So I'm starting with my sand, and you can see the little flaps. This is just like putting together any other box card. These are the different, what I call shelves that you would place different images on. So I'm attaching the sand piece to the very front. So this is right up against the white border that's created by our box book card die here. And again, just adding glue to the two little flaps, and those attach to the left and right inside of the box. And now I'm doing the ink blended water, and I'm putting that pretty snug up against the island piece. I'm so sorry, it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing here because I closed up my box, but you can kind of see here how they're attaching to the sides, and I'm just making sure that it's in a good place and it's securely attached to the sides. Next is my vellum wave, and again adding them to the sides of the box, and I did this one a little further back, so I'm trying to create a little bit of dimension here with my water. And then I took the teal sparkle cardstock and glued that right behind the vellum. Now I want my clouds to seem kind of further away, so I'm gluing down the white sparkle clouds first, and this time I'm gluing it as close as I can to the back side of the box card so it's touching the blue sky. And then I am gluing the other white cloud to be a little higher and a little bit more in front of those sparkle clouds, but I wanted to really look like there was a lot of dimension in this kind of scene that I'm creating inside of like a shadow box. That's, I guess, what I'm going for here. So now that my scene is done, I'm going to add my book covers. I decided to go with Neenah's Desert Storm. I just felt like it would be a nice complement to the blues and the sand that are inside of my book box card die. And I'm gluing the book cover to both sides. So to the edge of the book, the seam of the book, and to the back. And for the front cover, I'm only adding adhesive to this, I guess it's the spine, huh? The spine of the book. And I'm making sure it's glued all the way up to the edge so that way it will attach nicely and it will stay secure once the card receiver receives this card. And you can see that the book opens up on the front, just like a book cover. So now that the base of my box is done, and as you can see, it does lay flat, you could, put this in an envelope and possibly mail it. I'm gonna play around with my layout of my characters, and once I'm happy with how they're gonna be placed, I'm gonna start gluing them down. Now my island princess here, she's gonna be glued directly to the sand and water as well as the edge of my book here. So just gluing her right down. And then my two little animal characters are going to be kind of coming up out of the book. I want it to look like they're gradually coming out of the background. So I have them glued down. I'm going to glue my demigod here with his hook. So I'm adding it to his hand. And I'm doing my best to make sure that he's going to fit onto that book panel or the book cover. So the hook's kind of at a funky angle, but I wanted to make sure it didn't stick out of the edge. And I'm just gluing him directly to that craft cover. Once I have that done, I knew I wanted to add a little bit more to his scene on the book because I felt kind of plain. I wanted a little bit something else. So I'm going to grab this die from Fawn. It's the Slimline Tropical Leaves border, and I'm going to cut it out of two different shades of green. I'm going to grab my Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to add a little bit of shadowing to these pieces. So just like I did with my other pieces, I just want to add a little bit more dimension. So just taking that ink and adding it to those two leaves. Next, I trimmed it down so it will fit perfectly on the top edge of that craft book cover, and I'm going to glue them together first. And I noticed that I needed to add a little bit of paper to the back here so that way it would glue flat up against the craft book cover. So I'm going to add the glue to my green leaves. I'm going to trim down a really thin piece of cardstock and just add it to where the darker green is showing. I'll trim off the excess and then add some glue to that piece, and then I'll finally end up gluing it to the inside of the book cover. So here you can see it's kind of bringing the scene a little bit more out of the book and making my demigod here not look kind of just odd by himself. I really love the sentiment, "You're welcome." It's one of my favorite parts of this whole fandom movie. So I'm stamping that sentiment just above the demigod here with some pinecone VersaFine clear ink. I'm doing my best to get it centered to the center of my book cover. And that will finish off pretty much the inside. I will add a little bit of details once I'm done, but I'm going to move on to the cover of my book. So I'm measuring the dimensions using my grid on my glass mat, and I'm going to trim this down to be 1/2 inch smaller on both the top and bottom as well as the left and right side. So there is a 1/4 inch showing of that craft book cover. I'm grabbing my Henry's ABCs die set also from Lawn Fawn, and I cut out the sentiment "The ocean is calling" out of some kind of pearlescent white paper as well as the same teal paper. I use both of these on the inside of the card for the clouds as well as the water. I'm grabbing some repositionable tape and I'm going to line up all of my blue letters on this tape so that way I can keep them in place while I add some Distress Oxide in Uncharted Mariner to the bottom of the letters. And I'm trying to go in with a soft touch because I want it to look like an ombre effect coming up from the bottom of the letter, so it's kind of fading into that darker color. Once those are done, I'm going to add glue behind the white die cut letter, and I'm adding the blue part of the letter as a drop shadow to the bottom right. That's just the way I tend to add drop shadows to all of my letters, is towards the bottom right. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for the whole sentiment. And then I'm going to work on gluing them on. So I've already added that brown sparkle glitter paper to the book cover. And now I'm figuring out how I'm going to fit the word calling because it is the longest word and I want to make sure it fits onto the front cover. So I am overlapping my letters quite a bit, but you can still obviously see it's the word calling. I use that repositional tape to hold them together, and then I added some wet glue and I'm gluing it to the front of this card. And I let it sit for quite a bit because this is a very textured glitter cardstock and I want to make sure my sentiment stays on it. So this time I didn't use repositionable tape, but I am just adding a little bit of glue to the back side of the letters and gluing them on so they're layering together. That way the rest of my sentiment will match. So the ocean is going to overlap on itself, so that way it matches how I glued together the word calling. So again, I'll go through and finish adding my sentiment, and here you can see it when it's finally done. And now I have these final little details that I want to add. I wasn't really sure where I was going to put this heartstone, so I ended up just wanting to add it to the top of the inside, so it kind of, I don't know, brings something to look at towards the top when you open up the book box card. And now I'm going to layer these different tropical flowers all around. So I'm doing quite a bunch on the front, just tucking them in behind my letters before they're completely dry. I also added a few to the inside just to bring in a little more color to those leaves, and then one here on the bottom of the spine. I just thought it was kind of fun to see it on the spine of the book. So here is a look at the outside of my book box card, and here is a look on the inside. I think this die set is so cool, and I hope you'll check it out from the Sassy Club. Like I said, I will definitely be making another video with this die set so you can see an easier way to put it together. I do have a ton of layers inside, so folding this flat is probably not going to be the easiest thing, but it would make a really cute card or gift just to hand to your gift receiver, especially someone who is a big fan of this Polynesian inspired movie. But I hope you enjoyed my take on this box card die set and that you check it out for yourself. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!